In Russia, war no longer sparks joyful shouts of hurrah, and we can do it again. The would-be conquerors have grown despondent and buried their positive emotions along with thousands of indebted soldiers.
We ask you to end this cursed war. We have lost everything. Our home, our land, our vehicles, our livelihood. Everything we once had is now gone, all that we cherish.
Even the propaganda has stopped getting ecstatic over the special military operation because its stench of death reaches all the way to Sakhalin.
Whoa. Who precisely are you hiding under there? Here's my Korsetsky. Young one, mark me. Greenhouses. Carnico. Where's Carnico? Where did all the Carnicos go? Well, we did manage to find Korsetsky, but unfortunately we were not able to find Panikov.
Now in Russia, when someone tells you to go to hell, what they really mean is the SMO. Because if you want someone you don't like to simply disappear, the SMO is widely considered the very best place on Earth for that purpose. To be even more precise, the SMO is, without a doubt, regarded as the best place on Earth for disposing of Russians you want gone.
At the moment, we are currently holding a circular defense. On the other side, there are those relentless forces who pound us day and night without mercy. And on this side, it's our very own people who want to wipe us all out for the simple and cruel reason that we refuse to carry out their stupid, reckless, and drunken orders that make absolutely no sense at all. Not in the slightest, not even a little bit.
The past year has been nothing short of a disaster for the orcs. They are being burned up in meat assaults like coal in a locomotive, and yet that locomotive still barely moves from its place.
Since October, from Nevelske to Novoselivka, we've had 16,000 irrecoverable losses on our side and about 300 units of destroyed armored vehicles.
Trump's victory played a cruel joke on Russian soldiers. The 2 months before his inauguration will become some of the most terrifying in history in terms of human losses. They are being driven into meat assaults with sticks, by resetting contracts and through abuse, all to improve Putin's negotiating position.
It's clear that the fight is over a ceasefire, over freezing the war and over its terms. That's why people are being thrown in like fuel for the fire.
Russian soldiers have officially been reduced to disposable status. Soon in Russia, they will be as scarce as tampons.
Greetings. We are servicemen of the 26th Tank Regiment 47th Division. We are in the Special Military Operations Zone. Over 50 people have arrived in the Luhansk People's Republic from hospitals. These are the remnants of 3 companies. Our command took us to the base and is sending us out on combat missions in groups.
The task of the Russian orc is to die quickly and not ask unnecessary questions of the commanding officers. And those who do ask questions first end up sitting in a pit and then still die quickly, often at the hands of their commanding officers.
In short, I witnessed crimes committed by the commander of the regiment's 2nd Battalion, 1,430, with the call sign 714. We started telling him that we have problems there, that the command abandoned us. We don't have shovels or anything, we have nothing to dig with. In short, we have nothing at all. That's it. In response, he shot Fetilov Alexei, call sign Tolitsa, in the head. Just so you understand, he was the father of 5 children.
For the first 2 years, Russians tried to pretend they didn't notice the catastrophe. But now Muscovy has sunk into a deep depression. Even the most fanatical Z supporters have become despondent. The war has come to every Russian street, to every Russian apartment building. And finally, even the die-hard loyalists have burst out, like a fountain of sewage in Moscow.
Once again, I am approached by a huge number of wives, mothers and children. Help us! Dad is missing, disappeared somewhere. Either dad was killed or he was deliberately killed because he refused to pay money so that they would let him go on his well-deserved leave.
Former glorifiers and supporters of the war, Putin's followers, and advocates of imperial revival are no longer holding back in their statements and are openly criticizing the Kremlin.
They're suicide squads. They're getting rid of those they don't want there. Wounded soldiers are shoved back into the ranks without even being allowed to finish to properly recover, with shrapnel still in them. Sometimes they just give them painkillers. Go on, that's what they call it. I understand that something's been wrong in the army for a long time. People are being sent straight to certain death. You see, they look at them as expendable, plain and simple. Like, how should I put itro material? You understand?
The one-time you soldiers at the front also started to howl en masse about the injustice, stupidity, and cruelty of the command. And now they don't want money anymore, or medals, or a white ladder for their mothers. It turned out that no one wants to die for a homeland like this, even for 3 million rubles.
There are about 20 of us, 17 have a socially significant disease, hepatitis C. According to the order of Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, people with hepatitis C cannot serve, cannot be on the front line. So you could say it's as if our commanders who are sitting back there are sending us with viral hepatitis, sending us there to infect the Russian army. For what purpose? Ukraine won, and many of our soldiers died from the virus.
The orcs started refusing to become pointless cannon fodder, especially since in 3 years, they still haven't bothered to articulate what they're dying for. Is it for denazification? Or so that Donbass isn't bombed? Or to stop NATO from expanding? Or to bring Yanukovych back to Kyiv? Or so that people speak respectfully to Putin? Or just because?
Well, because
Just because.
In the Russian army, there is only one way to motivate people, leisure, and torture. And this has already become widespread. For a commander, shooting a soldier is like having a cigarette. A pleasant habit.
What the heck? What is this? Is this an army?
This is not that in any way.
Russian soldiers are driven to slaughter like cattle. There is virtually no chance of survival. Being sent on an assault is, in reality, a death sentence, and it is also one of the ways used to erase those who try to ask inconvenient questions.
Lying is absolutely the norm. Lying about certain settlements being captured is the norm. This message, you understand, I am recording because there is a very high chance that I won't return from this assault. So, remember this, a war must be called a war.
In this whole situation, one reasonable question arises: how long will Russian soldiers put up with this? Sure, it's clear that even Hachiko would envy the patience of Russians, but everything has its limit. They've been cornered and given a choice. Die at the hands of their commander, die in a meat grinder assault, or risk their lives and fight for their freedom with weapons in hand.
The command gives criminal, murderous, and utterly ruthless orders. Go and die, all of you, without hesitation. And the rank-and-file soldiers, if they don't have enough willpower or inner strength, go and die in droves, for nothing at all, sacrificing themselves meaninglessly. But if he is confident in himself and understands that this is idiocy, he will simply go home en masse. Do you think this is a normal army? Do you think we can win a war with an army like this?
There is already an example of a military mutiny Prigozhin march on Moscow. That uprising also happened after huge losses in the Bakhmut meat grinder, where tens of thousands of orcs were killed. Then, the survivors were immediately supposed to be sent to storm further, but the demoralized fighters turned their weapons toward Moscow.
Once again, we came here. We want to get Chief of the General Staff Mishari. Until this happens, we will stay here. We are blocking the city of Rostov and heading to Moscow.
If it broke out back then, it will break out even more now, because the level of derussification has now reached an industrial scale.
But what should the country do? What should our children, grandchildren, the future of Russia do? And how can we win the war if, by chance, I'm just suggesting it turns out that this old man is a complete...
So far, the uprisings are local and scattered, but their number is constantly growing, and they are receiving massive support. The smarter ones start fleeing the army even before they are sent to Ukraine.
Mutiny. Come on, you bastard! Do it again! Mutiny! Woo-hoo!
No arguments, no arguments, no arguments.
It's somehow not surprising that a Russian army barracks looks like a prison. The bars on the doors look very sturdy. It's clear how they treat the soldiers there like powerless sacks of bones.
We, as those who fight, are obliged to treat ourselves with humility, with disregard for our own lives if necessary, for the sake of our work, with submission and patience. But the state, if it wants to have reliable defenders, has no right whatsoever to allow itself to show demonstrative disregard for those who give their lives for it. What happens to a state if it allows such disregard. There are many negative examples. The most extreme is the year 17, when the defenders of the fatherland abandoned the front left, and what did I get out of that?
The question is no longer whether there will be a soldiers' revolt. The question is, when will it happen? How many more resets and meat assaults need to pile up before the simple folk remember that they are people, not expendable material? It's obvious to everyone that your chances of surviving a march on the Kremlin are 1,000 times higher than at the front. Because at the front, your chances are zero, zilch, nothing at all.
There's a saying, in war a soldier is expendable material, and after the war he's used up. Let's approach this with understanding. This has happened more than once in human history.
Rebellion is the only way for Russians to survive. Otherwise, no one will return home from the front, and their relatives will eventually burn in nuclear ashes because of a crazy old man who wants to make it into the history books.
Let's deal with those commanders who send people into assaults, like what happened in Seversk, where it was twice reported that our troops had liberated Serebryanka. But in reality, the fighting is now taking place in Belogorovka, near the chalk quarry, which we haven't been able to capture for 2 years, yet they talk about striking Poland.
There's really no point in hoping for the Russian opposition cheerfully and casually strolling through the streets of Berlin. They live in a parallel reality.
President. Julia. President. Julia. President. Julia. President.
That's why the survival recipe for a Russian soldier is simple. A rifle, a forced march, Moscow.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.